You are listening to Housekeepers Chat by the United States Department of Agriculture from 1927. Disclaimer: this is read from a historic archive document. Do not assume content reflects current scientific knowledge, policies, or practices. This broadcast was aired on Monday, the 25th of April of 1927.
Today's chat will be of value to every homekeeper who is interested in furnishing a home, whether it be a new one or one not so new. The information, practical and up-to-date, is from the United States Bureau of Home Economics.
One of my old students came to see me the other day. Phyllis is just as pretty as her name and as intelligent as she is pretty. She is going to be married in June. Phyllis was a bright student, and I predict that she will be a model housewife.
Aunt Sammy,
began Phyllis, putting the last stitches in a frivolous pink and white porch frock.
John and I are building a house. We have been studying plans all winter, and we have finally decided on a Dutch colonial cottage. You know the type, cream-colored siding with a dark green front door. I fell in love with the green front door. There's a quaint Dutch seat on the front stoop and a brick chimney built outside the house. John had the plans drawn by the most dependable architect in town.
A fine idea, said I. If people who build houses for the first time only realized how much money and time and argument could be saved by a good set of plans, there would be less discontent in the world.
I believe that,
said Phyllis.
You can't imagine how sketchy our plans were before we consulted the architect. We knew we wanted a small home because it would be less expensive than a large one and easier to keep up. However, such things as the correct location of stairs, doorways, and windows had never occurred to us. The architect told us to plan certain items in the furnishing while the house was being built. In fact, he advised us to plan the house with our furnishings in mind. So, while the house plans were being drawn, I cut out small pieces of cardboard to represent furniture. The cardboard pieces were cut to the same scale as the house plan. By fitting them to the plan, we have made sure that all windows and doors leave the proper space for our furniture. Another thing we had to consider was electric lights. We found it cheaper to provide the lights while the house is being built than later. We're going to have electric lights wherever they're needed. I insisted on having plenty of light in the kitchen. The lights will be located properly in relation to the table, sink, and stove.
Just a minute, I interrupted. I must have a pencil. You seem to have learned a good many practical things that might interest my radio listeners. Since this is Better Homes Week, far be it from me to pass up such an opportunity as this. What else did you learn about house furnishings?
Isn't that coquettish?
Said Phyllis, ignoring my question as she tied a perky bow on the pink and white porch frock.
That's done, and I'm ready to sew the loops on my kitchen hand towels. I have a dozen hand towels and not a single dish towel. Do you know why that is, Aunt Sammy?
Certainly. No need to make dish towels or buy kitchen utensils. That's what showers are for.
Exactly,
said Phyllis.
I'm not mercenary, but I am practical. To return to the subject of our house, the next thing we considered was the wall covering. Both paint and paper have their good points. We had to decide early because our choice made a difference in the plaster finish. Watercolors are cheaper than oil, though oil is more permanent. I learned some things about wallpaper that your listeners might be interested in if they're intending to paper the house this spring.
Go ahead, said I.
I learned,
said Phyllis,
that well-designed wallpapers may be had in the cheaper grades. Paper of the same tone throughput increases the apparent size of a room. Large figures make a room look smaller. An absolutely plain background shows dirt more easily. It is possible ordinarily to get a mottled effect or small figures, which at a distance have the appearance of a solid color, but still do not show the soil easily. It is especially desirable that adjoining rooms, such as living room and dining room, which may be thrown together, have the same wall color. Upstairs, the separate bedrooms give an opportunity for individual choice in wallpaper. After we had chosen our wall coverings, we selected shades for all the windows. I discovered that duplex shades, or those with a different color on each side, are advisable if the sun glares, although they cost more. Next, we considered the floor coverings. You've no idea how expensive floor coverings are. John wanted me to have at least one Oriental rug, but when we priced the Oriental rugs, we decided simultaneously that an Oriental rug would be a suitable gift for our golden wedding anniversary. Will you keep that in mind, Aunt Sammy?
In my notebook, said I. Of course, if you know by the end of 50 years that you cannot get along without an Oriental rug, then you'd better have one. But for the present, you can get satisfactory, cheaper rugs of plain effect. The rugs need not be absolutely of one shade, but varied enough so that they won't show soil easily. Be sure to have one color scheme in mind for all the living rooms of your house. I mean the rooms downstairs. And select your rugs and so forth with this color scheme in mind. If there is much sunshine, you may want to use gray or green or blue as a background, though any one of these colors may be warmed or cooled by diluting with other colors. For a darker house with less sunshine, choose a color scheme of warm brown or tan or rose. Remember that brilliant colors should be used in small amounts. If you use brilliant colors in larger amounts, you must soften them. What are you smiling at, Phyllis?
You,
said Phyllis.
You told me all that when I went to school.
Glad you remember it, said I. What kind of rugs did you buy for your bedrooms?
We bought washable rugs,
replied Phyllis.
I found some very nice rag rugs, large and heavy enough so they will stick to the floor. I can't stand limp little rag rugs, which are always getting tangled up with my feet. I saw some fiber rugs, too, in pleasing colors. The new fiber rugs, besides being inexpensive and pretty, are washable and quite appropriate for bedrooms. As soon as we had chosen the floor coverings, we selected the hangings for the whole house. My object in selecting the curtains was to see what good effects I could get with inexpensive materials. For bedrooms, I think dotted Swiss in dainty colors is lovely. Unbleached muslin bound or banded or appliqued with a color is always good. John went with me when we selected the bedroom curtains. You know I like dainty, frilly things, and I'm especially partial to ruffles. There were many appropriate materials for dainty curtains: dotted Swiss, organdie, voile, marquisette, and net. For my room, I chose ruffled tie-back curtains of cream voile over a shade of glazed chintz with a wild rose design. I noticed that John was uneasy while I looked at the curtain materials. As soon as the saleswoman was out of earshot, John whispered to me, "Say, Phyllis, couldn't I have something plain, without ruffles and roses, for curtains in my room? They look so ladylike."
Strong color and simple lines, said I. That's what you need. Come over here and look at burlap and denim and crash and sateen, green, brown, blue, or orange. Make your choice, then I'll get a painted pole to hang your curtains on, and there will be no valance over the top. That ought to be dignified enough for any man. 3 cheers for John, said I. No petticoat rule for him.
Not yet,
said Phyllis calmly.
We haven't bought the rest of our hangings. I want something bright and cheery for the kitchen, probably orange and white checked gingham. For the adjoining rooms downstairs, the living room and dining room, we want either the same or harmonizing curtains, just as in the case of the walls. My living room is going to be the most cheerful, the most comfortable, and the most restful living room in the neighborhood. No faddish curtains for me,
said Phyllis.
I'm buying curtains which won't tire my family and my friends.
Bravo, I exclaimed. You're a strong-minded person if you can escape the foolish fads and fashions and the novelties which appear every year to attract or distract the housekeeper who wants a well-furnished home. We spent the rest of the time discussing kitchens and linen closets and bedrooms. Tomorrow I shall tell you all about it. Now, since there isn't time to plan a menu, I'll give you a most delectable recipe for Rhubarb Betty. I made it for dinner last night, and Phyllis says it must be included in the radio cookbook. For the Rhubarb Betty, you will need 1 quart sweetened rhubarb sauce, or 1½ quarts raw sliced rhubarb and sugar to sweeten, 1 quart fine, dry breadcrumbs, 4 tablespoons melted butter, and cinnamon or nutmeg. Perhaps I'd better repeat that. For the Rhubarb Betty, you will need 1 quart sweetened rhubarb sauce, or 1½ quarts riced rhubarb and sugar to sweeten, 1 quart fine, dry breadcrumbs, 4 tablespoons melted butter, and cinnamon or nutmeg. Mix the butter with the crumbs. Place the rhubarb and the crumbs in alternate layers in a greased baking dish. Sift the cinnamon or nutmeg over the top. Bake the pudding in a moderate oven. If rhubarb sauce is used, the Betty will require about 15 minutes to bake. If raw rhubarb is used, cover the baking dish at first and bake for 25 minutes or until the rhubarb is tender. Serve the pudding hot with or without hard sauce. That's all for today. Tomorrow we'll discuss kitchens and linen closets and bedrooms and so forth.
This broadcast was researched and produced by Breakaway Empire LLC.